Level 1. The student pilot. It's 6 a.m. on a Saturday, and the building in front of you looks absolutely nothing like the glamorous world of aviation you saw in the movies. It's a weathered cinder block FBO, fixed base operator, with peeling paint, a faded windsock flapping lazily in the distance, and an interior that smells distinctly of stale coffee, old flight manuals, and nervous sweat. You are 19, or maybe you're 32 trying to escape a soul-crushing corporate cubicle. It genuinely doesn't matter. Out here, the airplane doesn't care about your past. You walk up to a front desk cluttered with VFR sectional charts and hand over your debit card. You are about to initiate a financial drain that will quietly consume your life savings, your disposable income, and your credit score. Your instructor is a 22-year-old kid in a wrinkled polo shirt. He's grinding his way to the 500-hour mark required for the airlines, and you are just a stepping stone on his resume. He leads you out to the ramp. You approach a Cessna 172 that was manufactured before you were born. The paint is sun-faded, the interior plastics are brittle, and it reeks of 100 LL aviation fuel and hot vinyl. You climb into the left seat. The cabin is claustrophobic. The instrument panel is a chaotic analog mess of dials that look completely alien. He walks you through the engine start. You push the mixture in, turn the key, and the ancient Lycoming engine coughs, violently shakes the entire airframe and roars to life. You taxi to the hold short line, your legs trembling on the rudder pedals. You push the throttle to the firewall. The noise is deafening. The center line blurs. And then, the nose lifts, the vibration stops, and you are airborne. For exactly 5 seconds, the absolute chaos of your life evaporates. You are flying. That specific feeling costs you about $200 an hour. You become addicted to it immediately. For the next several months, your life is a grueling cycle of pattern work. Crosswind, downwind, base, final. You bounce your landings so hard your teeth rattle. You float down the runway. You feel completely incompetent. You spend nights watching YouTube tutorials on crosswind landings, wondering why your hands won't do what your brain tells them to. Then comes the morning your instructor suddenly tells you to pull over on the taxiway. He unbuckles his harness, opens the door, and steps out onto the pavement. He looks at you and says, "Give me 3 laps in the pattern. Don't break my airplane." The door slams shut. The right seat is empty. There is no one to grab the yoke if you screw up. You push the throttle. The plane climbs unnaturally fast without his weight. You are utterly alone at 2,000 feet. You shoot 3 terrible, nerve-wracking landings, but you survive. When you taxi back, they cut the back of your t-shirt off with a pair of shears, an ancient aviation tradition. You staple that piece of fabric to your bedroom wall. It is the most expensive piece of clothing you will ever own. Level 2, the private pilot. You finally have the piece of plastic in your wallet. You passed your check ride with a terrifying designated pilot examiner, DPE, who grilled you on FAA regulations, airspace minimums, and weight and balance calculations until you were dripping with sweat. You made a few sloppy errors on your steep turns, but you didn't kill anyone, so he handed you your temporary certificate. You are officially a private pilot. You are legally allowed to fly passengers. You are also hyper-aware that you know absolutely nothing. You start taking your friends up. You meticulously brief them on the seatbelts and emergency exits, trying to project the calm, cool aura of an airline captain. You fly them to a neighboring county airport just to eat a greasy burger at a diner off the ramp, the infamous $100 hamburger. Your friends post pictures on Instagram, and they think you are the coolest person alive. They think you've made it. But behind the sunglasses, you are terrified. Not of the airplane falling out of the sky, but of looking stupid. You check the aviation weather reports, METARs and TAFs, obsessively. You worry about busting Class Bravo airspace and getting a phone number to call from air traffic control. One afternoon, you hit unexpected mechanical turbulence over a ridgeline. The little Cessna drops 50 feet in a second. Your passenger grabs the dash, turns the color of chalk, and throws up in a grocery bag. Welcome to general aviation. You fly at sunset when the air is glass smooth and the horizon is a bleeding canvas of orange and purple that no smartphone camera can ever actually capture. You are hemorrhaging money. You are skipping meals to pay for Hobbs time. You don't care. Every time the wheels leave the pavement, the crushing gravity of the real world, the rent, the car payments, the emails, stays on the ground. You found the ultimate escape hatch, but you realize that fair weather flying isn't enough. You want to punch through the clouds. Level 3, the instrument trainee. You want to be a real aviator, which means you need your instrument rating. This is the rating that breaks people. It is a psychological torture chamber. To fly in instrument meteorological conditions, IMC, you have to train your brain to ignore its own survival instincts. Your instructor slaps a pair of foggles on your head, plastic glasses that block the entire outside world, restricting your vision solely to the 6 analog dials on the dashboard. Your entire existence is now reduced to the attitude indicator, altimeter, and airspeed. You learn that your inner ear is a liar. Without a visual horizon, your brain will scream at you that the airplane is in a diving left turn, when the gauges show you are flying perfectly straight and level. This is spatial disorientation, and it has killed thousands of pilots. You learn to scan the instruments in a relentless robotic cycle: airspeed, attitude, altitude. Heading, attitude, vertical speed. Meanwhile, air traffic control is barking rapid-fire clearances into your headset in a language you barely comprehend. Cessna 3 Bravo Alpha. Turn right heading 240. Maintain 3000. Cleared ILS runway 9er approach. You are sweating through your shirt. You are trying to twist radio knobs, read an approach plate on your iPad, hold your altitude within 100 feet, and talk to ATC all at the exact same time. You get behind the airplane, meaning the machine is dictating the flight, and you are just a passenger desperately trying to catch up. Then comes the day you fly into a real, solid cloud bank. The gray mist swallows the windshield. The cabin gets dark. There is no up. There is no down. If your alternator fails right now and you lose your gyros, you are a dead man. You grip the yoke, put your absolute faith in the dials, and fly the needles down the glide slope. You drop to 400 feet, 300 feet, 200. Suddenly, the gray breaks apart. The runway approach lights materialize out of the fog, perfectly aligned directly in front of your nose. You pull the throttle back and grease the landing. The satisfaction that washes over you has nothing to do with thrill-seeking. It is the cold, hard satisfaction of raw competence. You aren't just a hobbyist anymore, you are a pilot. Level 4, the commercial grind. You cross the 250-hour mark. You pass another grueling check ride to earn your commercial pilot certificate. On paper, you are legally allowed to fly for compensation or hire. In reality, absolutely nobody in the aviation industry wants to hire a pilot with only 250 hours. The major airlines require 500 hours by federal law. You are currently in the time-building purgatory. To bridge this massive gap, you take the dirtiest, lowest-paying flying jobs in the American economy. You move to a cramped apartment near a beach town to fly banner tow planes. You spend your summers dragging massive Geico advertisements behind a stripped-down Piper Cub, flying low and slow at 500 feet over packed beaches while tourists ignore you. Or maybe you fly meat missiles, skydivers. You sit in a battered Cessna 182 with the right door completely removed, clawing your way up to 10,000 feet, dumping a load of adrenaline junkies out the side, then aggressively spiraling the plane back down to the dirt just to do it again, 14 times a day. Or you get a gig flying pipeline patrol in the desolate stretches of West Texas. You fly a low-wing Piper 100 feet off the deck, staring out the window at endless miles of dirt, looking for oil leaks. You are completely isolated. Just you, the drone of the engine, and the existential dread of your own thoughts. The pay is borderline criminal. You pull in maybe $24,000 a year if you hustle every single day. You live with 4 roommates in a crumbling house. Your dinner consists of ramen noodles and stolen break room coffee. You are a professional, commercially licensed aviator, and you technically qualify for food stamps. But you don't care because every hour you log is a tiny deposit into your logbook. The logbook is your Bible. It is the only currency that matters. You are buying your way to the airlines with your own blood, sweat, and poverty. Level 5, the Certified Flight Instructor, CFI. The banner towing and skydiving drops aren't building hours fast enough, so you do what 90% of aspiring airline pilots do. You become a CFI. You return to the exact same faded FBO with the exact same wobbly ceiling fan where you started, except now you are sitting in the right seat. You are trusted to teach absolute novices how to control an aircraft. This is the most terrifying phase of your career. A student pilot will actively try to kill you at least twice a week. They will stall the airplane on a base to final turn, dropping the wing toward the dirt, and you will have to physically wrestle the controls away from them to save both of your lives. You find yourself repeating the exact same phrases your instructor drilled into your head years ago. More right rudder. Watch your airspeed. Pitch for speed, power for altitude. You're behind the airplane. You hear the words coming out of your mouth, and you realize that aviation knowledge is basically passed down through generations of exhausted, underpaid pilots sitting in cramped aluminum boxes at 3,000 feet. Your life is ruled by the Hobbs meter. You need that magical 1/500 hours to secure your airline transport pilot ATP rating. You currently have 500. The math is deeply depressing. Even if you fly 80 hours a month, which requires working 6 days a week, it will take you over a year to hit the minimums, and that's assuming the weather cooperates. When a thunderstorm rolls through, or when the 40-year-old starter motor on the trainer plane finally catches fire, your students cancel. When they cancel, you don't get paid, and you don't log hours. You obsessively tally your logbook every single night. You calculate the remaining months. You are 26 years old, making less money than a shift manager at an In-N-Out burger. But something invisible is happening. You are actually becoming an exceptional pilot. Not because you are flying complex jets, but because teaching forces you to deconstruct aviation to its absolute molecular level. You have to anticipate mistakes before they happen. You develop a terrifyingly sharp sixth sense for disaster. The hours are the gateway, but this raw, unglamorous judgment is the actual payoff. Level 6, the Regional First Officer. You hit 1,500 hours. The FAA hands you your ATP certificate. You immediately apply to the regional airlines. SkyWest, Republic, Endeavor, PSA. The flying public has no idea who these companies are. Passengers buy a ticket that says Delta Connection or United Express, assuming they are flying the mainline carrier, but the paycheck comes from a regional contractor. You get the job. You are sent to ground school and then the simulator. The full-motion Level D simulator costs $20 million and is terrifyingly realistic. You sweat completely through your dress shirt as the instructors throw engine fires, hydraulic failures, and severe wind shear at you in a digital blizzard. You survive, and you earn your type rating in an Embraer 175 or a CRJ 900 jet. Your first day on the line is a shock to your system. You walk into a glass cockpit flight deck that looks like a spaceship compared to the analog Cessnas you've been flying. You punch your route into the Flight Management System, FMS. There are 76 living, breathing humans sitting behind the reinforced cockpit door, trusting you with their lives. The captain sitting in the left seat has 15,000 hours. You have 1,500. You both are acutely aware of this massive experience gap. He lets you handle the controls, correcting your overcorrections gently. Your lifestyle becomes a grueling test of endurance. You are on reserve, which is a polite industry term for being owned by crew scheduling. You have a 2-hour call-up window, meaning you must be at the airport, in uniform, ready to fly within 120 minutes of your phone ringing. You commute to your base. Because you can't afford rent in New York or Chicago, you live in a crash pad, a dismal 2-bedroom apartment near the airport packed with 10 bunk beds, shared by transient pilots and flight attendants. You sleep on a cheap mattress while a stranger from another airline snores 3 feet away. You fly grueling schedules, 4 legs a day, short, exhausting hops, Cincinnati to Detroit, Detroit to Appleton, Appleton back to O'Hare. The airports all blur into a single, endless concourse of overpriced coffee and rolling luggage. You make around $60,000 to $80,000 a year. It's a massive step up from your CFI days, but when you look at your college friends who went into tech and are working from home, buying houses, and getting 8 hours of sleep, a quiet resentment builds. But you push it down. You tell yourself this is just the minor leagues. The majors are calling. Level 7, the legacy first officer. Your phone rings. It's the call. Delta, United, or American. The big 3. You pass the rigorous psychological exams, the panel interviews, and the simulator evaluations. You are handed a conditional job offer, CJO. You have essentially won the aviation lottery. You have secured the golden ticket. You show up to your legacy carrier training center, and it feels like stepping into a different universe. The hotels are nicer, the training is structured, the culture breeds prestige. You are assigned to a Boeing 737 or an Airbus A320. But there is a catch. In the airlines, seniority is God. Your seniority number dictates everything. Your schedule, your base, your vacation days, your aircraft type, and your quality of life. As a new hire, your seniority number puts you at the absolute bottom of a list of 15,000 pilots. Because you are at the bottom, you get the absolute worst schedules. You are assigned the trips the senior guys refuse to touch. Red ice from Vegas to Miami. Working straight through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and your kid's birthday. You are back on reserve, sitting in a hotel room in a city you don't care about, staring at your phone, waiting for crew scheduling to deploy you. But the money changes everything. Your first year, you pull in over $100,000. By year 3, with profit sharing and overtime, you are breaking $200,000. The grinding poverty of your 20s vanishes. You start flying longer legs, transcontinental routes. You wake up in a massive, plush hotel bed in Seattle, fly to Boston, and spend the night eating clam chowder on the company dime. The job slowly becomes routine. You memorize the checklists. The flows become muscle memory. Routine in aviation is the ultimate goal. Routine means boring, and boring means nobody dies. You can finally breathe. You can finally afford a real house. You buy a boat. You have a family. You look out the massive windshield of your Airbus at a blanket of stratocumulus clouds glowing under a full moon at 36,000 feet, and for the first time in a decade, you actually let yourself enjoy the view. Level 8, the captain. You've been at the legacy carrier for a decade. Your seniority number has finally crept high enough to hold the line. You bid for the upgrade. You go back to the simulator, and you emerge with 4 stripes on your epaulets. You are the captain. Moving from the right seat to the left seat is not a physical shift, it is a psychological earthquake. The cockpit looks identical, but the sheer weight of the authority changes the air pressure in the room. You are no longer the one offering suggestions. You are the one making the final, legally binding decisions. When the weather in Denver deteriorates into a whiteout blizzard, and dispatch is pressuring you to push off the gate, you are the one who sets the parking brake, calls operations, and says, "We aren't going anywhere." When a passenger has a heart attack over the Atlantic Ocean, you are the one who calculates the fuel burn, coordinates with Oceanic ATC, and initiates a diversion to Gander, Canada, knowing it will cost the airline hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your signature is on the release. Your FAA certificate is on the line. If metal bends or people get hurt, the federal investigation begins and ends with your name. You command an entire crew. A first officer, a relief pilot, and a dozen flight attendants all look to you to set the tone for the 14-hour flight to Tokyo. You make over $350,000 a year, maybe upwards of $500,000 depending on your aircraft size and overtime. You fly the heavy iron Boeing 777s, 787 Dreamliners, Airbus A350s. You eat authentic ramen in Japan on a Tuesday and have coffee in London on a Thursday. But your body is permanently out of sync. Jet lag is no longer a temporary condition, it is your baseline state of existence. You sleep in blackout curtains at 2 p.m. You have seen everything this industry has to offer. Severe clear air turbulence that tossed carts to the ceiling, catastrophic engine failures requiring emergency descents, sick passengers, and mechanical gremlins. You know that complacency kills. You look at your young, eager first officer, a kid with 2,000 hours who reminds you exactly of yourself 15 years ago, and you let him fly the leg. You impart your wisdom quietly. You don't tell him about the crash pads and the ramen noodles. You just tell him to watch his descent rate. Level 9, the line check airman. You have climbed to the absolute pinnacle of operational aviation. You are a check airman. You are the gatekeeper of the sky. The airline trusts you so completely that they have given you the authority to evaluate other pilots. You sit in the right seat, or sometimes the jump seat, observing captains on their annual line checks, or grading first officers attempting their upgrade to the left seat. You watch them handle the aircraft. You watch their crew resource management, CRM. You evaluate their judgment under stress. This is an incredibly heavy crown to wear. Saying, "Yes, you pass," is easy. Looking a 40-year-old pilot in the eye, a pilot who has dedicated their entire adult life, their marriage, and their finances to this career, and telling them, "No, you aren't ready," is devastating. Some take it professionally, some argue, some break down. You lose sleep over the failures. But you know the alternative is infinitely worse. Putting a pilot with marginal judgment in command of 300 souls is how accidents happen. You hold the line. You also serve on the ALPA safety committees. You sit in windowless conference rooms in Washington, D.C. with NTSB investigators, FAA regulators, and Boeing engineers, dissecting flight data from near misses. You rewrite the standard operating procedures. You argue over the phrasing of a single line in a checklist. It is incredibly dry, bureaucratic work, but you know that the ink on those pages is written in blood. You know that this boring paperwork saves lives of people who will never even know they were in danger. You are 58 years old. You have logged over 25,000 hours of flight time. You have been struck by lightning. You have shot an ILS approach down to minimums in a howling crosswind more times than you can count. At dinner parties, civilians ask you if flying is fun. You just smile and talk about the food in Paris. The real stories, the sheer terror of a cargo fire warning at 35,000 feet over the ocean, stay securely locked inside the flight deck, exactly where they belong. Level 10, the retired aviator. You reach the FAA mandatory retirement age of 65. You are legally aged out of the Part 121 airline world. Your final flight is a red-eye from Honolulu to Los Angeles. The airline knows. The dispatchers know. Your family is sitting in first class. The flight attendants make a tearful announcement over the PA system. When you land at LAX and taxi toward the gate, you see two massive airport fire trucks flanked on either side of the taxiway. They shoot massive arcs of water over your heavy jet, the traditional water cannon salute. You pull into the gate. You set the parking brake for the absolute last time. You pull the fuel control switches to cut off. The massive engines spool down into silence. You sit in the left seat for a long, quiet moment after the passengers deplane. You stare at the glass displays, the glare shield, the yoke you've held in your hands for decades. You memorize the smell of the conditioned air and the hum of the avionics, knowing with absolute certainty you will never sit in this seat again. You walk through the terminal in your four-stripe uniform. Strangers, tipped off by the gate agents, stop to shake your hand. You smile. You thank them. But internally, you feel a massive, unnameable void opening up. The next morning, you wake up in your quiet house. There is no alarm. There is no crew scheduling calling you. There is no weather briefing to review, no walk-around to perform, no V-speeds to calculate. For the first time in 40 years, absolutely nobody needs you to take them safely across the planet. You have 30,000 hours in your logbook. You have carried millions of people to weddings, funerals, business meetings, and final goodbyes. You were the invisible guardian locked behind a bulletproof door, and none of them ever knew your name. And that was the entire point of the job. You walk out onto your back porch with a cup of coffee. Your body still wakes up at 4 a.m. because decades of early showtimes permanently rewired your circadian rhythm. You look up at the crisp blue sky. High above, tracing a perfectly straight white contrail across the stratosphere, is a twin-engine jet. You know the exact route they are flying just by looking at their heading. You know the captain up there is drinking terrible airline coffee, monitoring the fuel burn, and talking to center. They have no idea an old man on a porch is looking up at them, feeling a deep, aching nostalgia for the sky. Somewhere, thousands of miles away, a 19-year-old kid is pulling a beat-up sedan into the cracked asphalt lot of a municipal airstrip. They are walking into a faded FBO that smells like old manuals and nervous sweat. They are handing over a debit card, their hands shaking slightly. They have absolutely no idea what the next 40 years will cost them. They don't know about the poverty, the missed holidays, the simulator stress, the sheer terror, or the crushing responsibility. They don't know that this career will hollow them out and rebuild them into someone entirely different. But they'll figure it out. They'll push the throttle forward. The cycle continues.